The Galactic Council chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Its walls curved up into a crystal dome that showed stars from 1,000 different worlds. In the center of this vast space, one human stood alone. Ambassador John Porter kept his back straight and his face calm. Around him, aliens of every shape and size filled the circular rows of seats. Some had tentacles, others had wings. Some breathed fire, while others lived in tanks of liquid. They all had one thing in common today. They were all staring at him. The voting board above glowed with bright numbers. John had watched those numbers climb all morning. Now they were final. The vote was 12,847 for Exile, only 203 against. Another 47 species had chosen not to vote at all. The Xanathi delegate sat in the front row. His long purple tentacles moved in slow waves, which John knew meant he was pleased. The Xanathi had led the campaign against humanity for years. Today was their victory. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. It came from the council chairman, a Kelvari who stood 15 feet tall. His head glowed with soft blue light that pulsed when he spoke. "The verdict is final," the chairman announced. Each word seemed to hang in the air. "Humanity has been deemed too aggressive for membership in the Galactic Assembly. Earth and all human colonies must withdraw to the designated quarantine zone. You have one solar cycle to comply." The silence that followed felt heavy. Every alien waited to see what the human would do. Would he shout? Would he beg? Would he threaten them? John Porter did none of these things. He simply nodded once. "We hear you," John said. His voice was steady and clear. "We understand. We'll leave." Something strange happened then. The aliens began to shift in their seats. Some leaned forward. Others exchanged looks with their neighbors. The Xanathi delegate's tentacles stopped moving. The chairman's glow flickered. He had not expected this response. In his 1,000 years of service, exiled species always reacted with anger or despair. "You accept this decision?" the chairman asked. "Yes," John replied. "The assembly has spoken. We'll begin evacuation immediately." A Vraxian ambassador stood up. Her scales clinked as she moved. "You offer no protest, no appeal?" "No," John said. "You've made your choice clear. We respect it." The Xanthi delegate finally spoke. His voice was wet and gurgling. "You humans always claim to be different, yet your history is full of war. You've fought each other for resources, for land, for ideas. You brought this same violence to the stars." John turned to face him directly. "You're right. We have a violent history. We've made mistakes. If the assembly believes we're too dangerous, then we'll go." Another alien, a small Quellian with bright feathers, chirped nervously. "But where will you go? The quarantine zone is mostly empty space, few habitable worlds, limited resources." "We'll manage," John said simply. The chairman raised one long arm. "Then it is settled. Ambassador Porter, you have one cycle to remove all human presence from assembly space. Any humans found outside the quarantine zone after this deadline will be considered hostile." John bowed slightly. "Understood, Chairman. We'll begin immediately." He turned to leave. His footsteps echoed in the vast chamber. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. "For what it's worth," John said, "it's been an honor to stand among you. Despite everything, I wish you all well." Then he walked out, leaving thousands of aliens in uncomfortable silence. The Xanathi delegate's tentacles twisted in confusion. That was unexpected. The chairman's glow dimmed. "Indeed. In all my years, I've never seen an exile accepted so calmly." "Should we be concerned?" asked the Vraxian. The chairman didn't answer. He stared at the door where the human had vanished, and for the first time in centuries, he felt uncertain about a council decision. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. Admiral Lisa Russell stood on the command deck of Unity Station. Through the wide windows, She watched hundreds of human ships preparing to leave Council space. Each vessel carried families, scientists, and workers away from the worlds they had called home. Captain Marcus Lane walked up beside her. He held a datapad in his hand. "All human personnel have left the embassy buildings," he reported. "Our colonies are packing up. The terraforming equipment on Kepler 7 has been shut down." Lisa nodded without taking her eyes off the view. "How long until everyone is out?" 3 weeks at most, Marcus said, far ahead of the deadline. "Good." Lisa turned to face him. Her voice dropped lower. "What about the other matter?" Marcus glanced around, making sure no one else could hear. "Project Horizon is moving faster than we hoped. Dr. Park says his team might be ready in 6 months, not 2 years. A small smile crossed Lisa's face. "Excellent. The Assembly thinks they're punishing us. They have no idea what they've just done." On the main screen, a map showed all human settlements in galaxy space. Red dots marked each location. One by one, those dots were turning gray as humans abandoned them. "Admiral," a young officer called out. "The Altarian News Network wants a statement about the evacuation." Lisa straightened her uniform. "Tell them we're complying fully with the Council's decision. Humanity respects the will of the Assembly." The officer looked confused. "That's all." "That's all." Across the galaxy, human colonies worked with strange efficiency. On mining worlds, humans carefully shut down equipment and sealed tunnels. On agricultural planets, they harvested final crops and left detailed instructions for whoever came next. Space stations were powered down in perfect order. Commander Elena Rodriguez supervised the evacuation of Research Station Gamma. Her team of scientists packed away experiments and wiped computer systems clean. "Ma'am," a technician said, "shouldn't we leave some of this data? The cooperation protocols say shared knowledge benefits everyone." Elena shook her head. "The Assembly voted to exile us. That ends our obligations to share anything." "But what about our allies?" "The Proxima Coalition voted against exile." "Pack everything," Elena said firmly. "Leave nothing behind." The same scene played out everywhere humans lived. They took all their technology, all their research, all their innovations. Factories were dismantled piece by piece. Databases were erased. Even personal items were carefully packed. On the trading world of Commerce Hub 7, merchant Bobby Chen closed his shop for the last time. He had sold exotic goods from 100 worlds for 15 years. Now he loaded the last boxes onto his transport. His Vraxian neighbor watched from across the street. "You leave so quickly," she said, her scales clicking sadly. No farewell party. No final sale. Bobby sealed the box. The Assembly voted. "We leave." Simple as that. "But you seem calm, not angry." Bobby shrugged. "What's done is done. Time to move on." The Vraxian's scales flickered with confusion. Like many aliens, she found the human response unsettling. Where was the rage, the despair, the desperate attempts to change minds? Back on Unity Station, Lisa received reports from across human space. Every evacuation ran smoothly. No protests, no delays, no problems. "It's almost too perfect," Marcus said quietly. "They must suspect something." Lisa shook her head. "Let them suspect. They wanted us gone. We're going." A message arrived from Earth. President Angela Mitchell's face appeared on Lisa's private screen. "Admiral, the preparation sites are ready. Once our people clear assembly space, we can begin the real work." "Understood, Madam President. The galaxy will be human-free in 3 weeks." Angela smiled. "Then in 3 weeks, humanity's next chapter begins." Lisa ended the call and looked out at the stars. The alien species thought they had solved their human problem. They believed isolation would weaken Earth. They were wrong. The evacuation wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. While aliens watched the borders of human space, humanity prepared for something bigger. The galaxy had voted for exile. Soon, They would learn what happens when you set humanity free from rules and restrictions. 2 months had passed since the Exile vote. Ambassador Korith of the Xenathi Collective stood in what used to be the human embassy on Kepler Prime. The building felt wrong somehow, though he couldn't say why. Everything was perfectly clean. Too clean. The walls were bare, the offices empty. Not a single paper remained. Even the waste bins had been emptied and wiped. His eyed, Velkin skittered in on 6 legs. "We've finished checking the building, Ambassador." The humans left nothing. Korith's 4 eyes blinked slowly. Nothing at all. No messages, no forgotten items, no damage. They even cleaned the air filters before leaving. Korith had served as a diplomat for 300 years. He had overseen the exile of 7 different species. The Morgothi had raged and destroyed their embassies. The Kelvorians had left behind bitter messages carved into walls. The Threndels had tried to sabotage the power systems. But the humans? They had vanished like morning mist. "Check the computer systems again," Korith ordered. "We have, sir, 5 times. Every hard drive is blank. Every server is wiped. They used military-grade deletion. We can't recover anything." Korith moved through the empty rooms. His tentacles touched walls and surfaces, finding nothing. In the ambassador's office, even the carpet had been removed, leaving bare floor. Another aide rushed in. "Sir, urgent news from the trade stations." "What about them?" "They've all self-destructed." Korith's tentacles went rigid. "What do you mean?" "Every human trade station, every supply depot, every refueling point. Controlled demolitions, perfectly timed. Nothing left but space dust." The news hit Korith like cold water. Hundreds of stations, destroyed in synchronized explosions. No warnings, no demands, just sudden emptiness where human technology once stood. Were there casualties? No, sir. They waited until all non-humans had left. Then, the aide made a gesture indicating complete destruction. Korith felt something cold in his primary stomach. This wasn't normal behavior for an exiled species. It was too organized, too complete, too calm. On the border of human space, Commander Velix of the Altarian fleet watched his monitors. The quarantine zone stretched before him, marked by warning beacons. "Any activity?" he asked his sensor operator. "Nothing, Commander. No ships coming or going. No communications. Even their satellites have gone silent." Velix frowned. The humans had been chatty, always broadcasting music and messages. Now their space was quieter than a graveyard. "Can we see inside their territory?" "Not past the first few light years. They've put up some kind of interference field. Our sensors can't penetrate it." This troubled Velix. The field wasn't hostile or aggressive. It just made observation impossible, like a curtain across space. Back in the empty embassy, Korith received more reports. Every human installation had been methodically destroyed or removed. Manufacturing plants, research centers, mining operations, all gone. "They're hiding something," he said to his staff. "No species accepts exile this easily." Velkin shifted nervously. "Perhaps they plan to attack." "No. If they wanted war, they'd have started it at the council. This is different." Korith thought back to the human ambassador's final words. No anger, no threats, just calm acceptance. It had disturbed everyone present. "Sir," another aide entered. "We found something." "What?" "In the basement. A single message." Korith followed quickly. In the lowest level of the embassy, painted on one wall, were human words. "Don't worry. We're fine." That was all. 4 words, no signature, no explanation. Korith stared at the message. Somehow, these simple words worried him more than any threat could have. The humans weren't acting like a defeated species. They acted like people with a plan. "Double our border patrols," he ordered, "and send a report to the council. Something is happening in human space." As Korith left the empty building, he couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The galaxy had voted to exile humanity. But what if humanity had wanted to be exiled all along? What if this had been their plan from the beginning? Deep in the quarantine zone, far from alien sensors, humanity was building something extraordinary. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had become the largest construction site in human history. President Angela Mitchell floated in the observation deck of the New Hope facility. Before her, thousands of robots and workers assembled structures that defied conventional physics. Madam President, Dr. Stephen Park drifted up beside her. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "We're ready for the first major test." Angela turned to him. "Are you certain?" "The risks are manageable," Stephen finished. "We've run every simulation. The theory is sound. Project Horizon will work." Through the reinforced windows, they watched a massive ring-shaped structure rotate slowly. Energy coursed through its frame in patterns that seemed to bend space itself. "Explain it to me again," Angela said. "In simple terms." Stephen smiled. "The aliens think in 3 dimensions. Up, down, left, right, forward, back. They travel through space like boats on an ocean. And we're learning to step off the ocean entirely, to move through dimensions they can't even perceive. On Earth, similar projects progressed at breakneck speed. The Exile had united humanity like nothing before. Old enemies worked together. Countries shared resources freely. Every human contributed to the great work. In underground laboratories, scientists pushed the boundaries of physics. Dr. Mary Kim led a team working on dimensional mathematics. "It's beautiful," she told her colleagues, pointing at equations covering entire walls. "The universe has back doors, side passages, secret tunnels. We just needed to be locked out of the front gate to find them." The aliens had done humanity a favor. For decades, council regulations had limited human research, safety protocols, technology restrictions, ethical committees that moved at glacial speed. Now, free from those chains, human innovation exploded. Captain Jake Williams commanded the test ship Pathfinder. His crew of volunteers knew the risks. If the dimensional drive failed, they might cease to exist entirely. "All systems green," his navigator reported. Jake nodded. "Initialize the dimensional field." The ship hummed with new energy. Space around them began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend. "Field stable. Ready for jump." Jake took a deep breath. "Execute." The Pathfinder folded space around itself and vanished. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then, 10 light-years away, the ship reappeared. The crew erupted in celebration. Jake stared at the navigational display in wonder. They had traveled 10 light-years in 3 seconds, not through space, but around it. "Signal command," he ordered. "Test successful. We have faster-than-light travel without using space lanes." Back at New Hope, Angela received the news with quiet satisfaction. The aliens controlled the established routes between stars. Their empire depended on a network of space lanes and jump points. Humanity had just made that network obsolete. "Phase 2 begins immediately," she announced to her advisors. "Start construction on the dimensional gates." These gates would connect human worlds instantly, regardless of distance. Not through space, but through dimensions the aliens couldn't access or understand. Dr. Stephen Park presented the next stage. "We can establish colonies anywhere now. Other galaxies, parallel dimensions, places the Council can't even imagine." Angela nodded. "How soon?" 6 months for the first extragalactic colony. 1 year for dimensional exploration." The room buzzed with energy. Every human present understood the magnitude of their achievement. The Exile hadn't weakened them. It had set them free. "The aliens fear us because we adapt quickly," Angela said. "They think isolation will make us weaker. Instead, we're becoming something beyond their comprehension." She looked at the star map showing the tiny quarantine zone. "They've given us a cage," she continued, "but we've learned to walk through the bars." General Paul Miller, Earth's defense coordinator, raised a concern. What happens when they discover what we're doing? Angela smiled coldly. By then, it'll be too late. We'll exist in places they can't reach, using technology they can't understand. The exile had been meant as punishment. Instead, it became humanity's chrysalis. While the galaxy watched their borders, humans prepared to transcend those borders entirely. The future belonged to humanity. The aliens just didn't know it yet. 3 years had passed since humanity's exile. The Galactic Assembly gathered for an emergency session. Fear filled the huge council chamber where they had once voted to banish Earth. Chairman Kelveri's blue glow flickered with worry. The monitoring stations report disturbing readings from the quarantine zone. Commander Velix stood before the assembly, his 4 arms holding different data tablets. Strange energy spikes, gravitational waves that don't match any known pattern, and most concerning, complete silence. Define silence, demanded the Xenathi delegate, his tentacles tight with tension. No radio signals, no ship traffic we can detect, no communication of any kind. It's as if 10 billion humans simply stopped talking. The assembly stirred uneasily. Dozens of species whispered in their own languages. The Vraxian ambassador raised her scaled hand. Could they have destroyed themselves? Perhaps their aggressive nature turned inward. No, Velix replied. Our sensors show their worlds still have atmosphere, still have cities with lights. They're alive. They're just quiet. Ambassador Korath slithered forward. His investigation team had spent years studying the human evacuation. This matches their behavior during the withdrawal. Too organized, too calm. The chairman's glow pulsed faster. What are you suggesting? That we made a mistake, Korath said simply. The humans accepted exile too easily. They're planning something. A young analyst from the Proxima sector stood nervously. Her feathers shook as she spoke. I've studied human history. They call this behavior going dark before the storm. Silence fell. Every species knew human storms. Their wars had been legendary before first contact. Their ability to unite against threats had worried the Council for decades. Double the monitoring stations, the chairman ordered. I want constant surveillance of the quarantine zone. Commander Velix shifted uncomfortably. Sir, there's another problem. The energy readings suggest they're experimenting with dimensional physics. The assembly gasped. Dimensional science was restricted technology, too dangerous, too unpredictable. That's impossible, the Kelvorian science advisor protested. Dimensional manipulation requires centuries of study. The math alone takes. Humans learn quickly, Korath interrupted. Free from our restrictions, they might advance faster than we expect. The chairman stood to his full height. Send a probe into the quarantine zone. We need to know what they're doing. 2 days later, the probe approached human space. It crossed the quarantine boundary, sending back normal readings. Empty space, distant stars, nothing unusual. Then it simply vanished. No explosion, no energy surge. One moment it transmitted normally. The next, it ceased to exist. Velix stared at the empty screen. It's gone. No debris, no signal, just gone. Fear spread through the command center. Whatever the humans had built, it could make things disappear without trace. Back in the council chamber, arguments rage. We should prepare for war, growled the Morgothi general. Strike before they strike us. With what? Korath asked bitterly. We don't even know where they are. Our sensors show empty space where we know cities exist. The Altarian philosopher spoke carefully. Perhaps we should attempt communication. Ask them their intentions. We exiled them. The chairman reminded everyone. We voted to cast them out. Why would they speak to us now? Unknown to the assembly, humanity watched their panic with interest. Hidden satellites, undetectable by alien technology, recorded every word. On Earth, President Angela Mitchell reviewed the footage with her advisors. They're scared, General Miller observed. Good. Angela shook her head. Fear leads to violence. We need them curious, not terrified. Dr. Stephen Park suggested a solution. What if we send them a message? Something to ease their minds while we complete our work. What kind of message? Stephen smiled. Something truthful but mysterious. Let them know we mean no harm, but don't reveal our capabilities. Angela considered this. The dimensional gates were almost complete. Soon humanity would step beyond this galaxy entirely. But they needed more time. Send this, she decided. We are becoming what we were meant to be. Do not fear the chrysalis. The message appeared in the council chamber 3 days later, transmitted on frequencies the aliens thought were secure. It answered no questions. It revealed no plans, but somehow it frightened them more than silence had. Captain Jake Williams stood on the bridge of humanity's first transdimensional vessel, the Phoenix Rising. The ship looked ordinary from the outside, but its interior defied physics. Corridors bent in impossible ways. Rooms existed in more dimensions than the eye could follow. All systems ready, Commander Elena Rodriguez reported. Her console displayed readings that would have confused any alien scientist. The dimensional drive is stable. Jake nodded. Today marked humanity's first journey beyond the local galaxy, not through space, but through dimensions the assembly couldn't even perceive. Begin jump sequence. Target: Andromeda Galaxy. The space around Phoenix Rising began to shimmer. Reality twisted. The stars seemed to fold inward. Drive engaged, Elena announced. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The ship vanished from normal space. For a moment that felt like eternity and no time at all, they existed everywhere and nowhere. Then they emerged. Before them spread the spiral arms of Andromeda, 2 million light-years from home. The journey had taken 15 seconds. Position confirmed, the navigator said, voice shaking with awe. We're in Andromeda. Jake allowed himself a smile. The assembly's fastest ships would need thousands of years to make this journey. Humanity had done it in seconds. Signal Earth. First test successful. On Earth, vast construction projects neared completion. The dimensional gates rose like monoliths, their surfaces rippling with energy that bent light itself. President Angela Mitchell watched the final connections being made on Gate Alpha. Each gate would link human worlds instantly, creating a network beyond the understanding of the assembly. Status report, she requested. Dr. Stephen Park consulted his tablets. Gate Alpha to Mars Colony. Operational. Gate Beta to Europa Station. Testing begins tomorrow. The Andromeda Gate will be ready within the week. And the security protocols. Perfect. Only human DNA can activate the gates. Any non-human attempting passage will find only solid metal. Angela nodded. Humanity wasn't just leaving the quarantine zone. They were leaving conventional space entirely. In the Galactic Assembly, fear had turned to panic. More probes sent toward human space have vanished. Energy readings made no sense. Mathematical models predicted impossible results. They're breaking physics, the Kelvorian science advisor reported. Our equations say their energy signatures can't exist. Ambassador Korith studied the data. No, they're not breaking physics. They're using physics we don't understand. The chairman's glow had turned a sickly green. How far ahead are they? We don't know. Their technology has diverged from ours completely. We can't even measure their progress anymore. Meanwhile, human exploration teams spread across dimensions. They found empty universes waiting for colonization. Parallel Earths with no intelligent life. Realities where physics worked differently, offering new possibilities. Captain Jake Williams led missions to places the Assembly couldn't imagine. His crew planted human flags on worlds in distant galaxies, in parallel dimensions, in realities where time flowed backward. Each new dimension is a laboratory, Dr. Park explained to the colonists. Different physics means different opportunities. Technologies impossible in our universe work perfectly next door. The dimensional network grew daily. Humans moved between realities as easily as walking through doorways. Children born in the colonies learned to think in dimensions their parents could barely comprehend. On the edge of the quarantine zone, Commander Velex watched his useless monitors. His sensors showed empty space where intelligence reported human activity. "Sir," his aide reported, "another message from human space." Velex read it with growing unease. "The chrysalis opens soon. The butterfly remembers the caterpillar, but cannot return to crawling." He didn't understand the metaphor, but the meaning felt clear. Humanity was becoming something new, something beyond their comprehension. In her office on Transdimensional Earth Station, Angela Mitchell signed the order for Phase 3. Humanity would soon reveal itself to the galaxy, not as the exiled species they once were, but as something entirely new. 5 years, she said to her advisors. In 5 years, we'll be ready to show them what we've become. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. They never imagined Earth would leave reality itself behind. 5 years after the exile vote, humanity broke its silence. The message arrived simultaneously at every assembly world, every monitoring station, every alien capital. It contained just 2 words: "Thank you." Then came the coordinates, not from the quarantine zone, but from 17 different galaxies, from places the assembly's maps didn't even show. Ambassador John Porter appeared in the Galactic Council chamber, not in person, but as a perfect hologram that seemed more real than reality. He looked unchanged, yet something about him felt different. His image flickered slightly, as if he existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Greetings, Assembly," he said calmly. "I bring a message from the United Human Dimensions." The chairman's bioluminescent crown flashed erratically. "This is impossible. You're in the quarantine zone. Our sensors show what we want them to show," John finished. "We've been very busy these 5 years." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted in dozens of languages. The Xenathi delegates' tentacles writhed in agitation. John raised his hand. The shouting stopped, not because he commanded it, but because his gesture revealed something incredible. His hand existed in multiple places simultaneously, each position equally real. "You gave us the push we needed," John continued. "While you kept us in one small corner of one galaxy, we found the keys to infinity." The main display screen activated. It showed human colonies across the universe, cities floating in the void between galaxies, stations orbiting stars in Andromeda, settlements in places that couldn't exist according to assembly science. "We've established presence in 17 galaxies," John reported. "We've made contact with species you'll never meet. We've discovered technologies you can't imagine." Ambassador Korath found his voice. "You violated the exile. You left the quarantine zone." John's image smiled. "No, we never left the quarantine zone. We just expanded our definition of space." The display changed. It showed the quarantine zone from a new perspective. The borders remained intact in 3-dimensional space, but in higher dimensions, humanity had simply stepped around them. "Your quarantine is like drawing a circle on the ground to trap a bird," John explained. "It works fine until the bird learns to fly." The Kelvorian science advisor studied the readings. "This is dimensional transcendence. Theoretical physics suggests it would take millions of years to achieve." "Your theories assumed we'd follow your path," John replied. "We found our own way." The chairman struggled to maintain composure. "What do you want? Revenge? War?" "Neither," John said. "We bear you no ill will. In fact, we're grateful." The display showed more images. Human children playing with alien creatures from other galaxies, scientists from parallel dimensions sharing knowledge, explorers mapping realities the assembly couldn't reach. "You thought you were punishing us," John continued. "Instead, you freed us. Your restrictions held us back. Your fear of our potential led you to create the very thing you feared most." The Xenathi delegate stood. "You expect us to believe you wish us no harm. Believe what you wish. We've moved beyond your reach, your understanding, your reality. What could we gain from harming you?" The display shifted again. It showed the assembly space from humanity's new perspective. The great galactic civilization looked small, confined to a tiny slice of possible realities. "We have a message," John said. "We'll continue growing, exploring, becoming. You can remain in your corner of one galaxy, in one dimension, following one path. Or," he paused. The entire assembly leaned forward. "Or you can learn. We'll teach any species willing to grow beyond their limitations. The dimensional gates are open to those ready to transcend." The chairman's glow turned white with shock. "You offer us membership in your alliance." "We offer you evolution," John corrected. "The same chance you denied us. The difference is, we won't vote on your worthiness. Growth is available to all who choose it." John's image began to fade. His final words echoed through the chamber. "You voted to exile Earth. We chose to exile ourselves from limitation. Now we offer you the same choice. The universe is infinite. Will you remain finite?" The hologram vanished. The assembly sat in stunned silence, facing a truth they weren't prepared for. Humanity hadn't just survived exile. They'd used it to surpass their exilers entirely. Admiral Lisa Russell stood in the Transdimensional Command Center, a space that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Through windows that showed different realities, she watched human civilization spread across infinite possibilities. "Madam Admiral," an officer reported, "the Galactic Assembly has sent a formal request." Lisa turned, unsurprised. "Let me guess. They want to join us." "Yes, Mom. Full membership in the Human Interdimensional Alliance. They're particularly interested in our dimensional gate technology." Lisa smiled. The same assembly that had voted to exile humanity now wanted access to their achievements. The irony was perfect. President Angela Mitchell appeared via dimensional link, her image crystal clear despite communicating from a parallel universe. "Have you seen their application?" "Just received it," Lisa replied. "They're offering full apologies for the exile vote." "We don't need apologies. The exile was the best thing that ever happened to us." Around them, displays showed humanity's new reality. Cities floated between dimensions. Children attended schools that existed in multiple universes at once. Scientists studied physics in realities where different laws applied. The transformation went beyond technology. Humans themselves had begun to change. Living in multiple dimensions had awakened dormant parts of their minds. Some could perceive 12 dimensions naturally. Others communicated through quantum entanglement. Captain Jake Williams entered the command center. He had just returned from exploring a universe where time flowed sideways. "The Assembly sent negotiators to our Andromeda embassy," he reported. "They seem desperate." "Of course they are," Angela said. "They're watching other species we've contacted evolving beyond them." The Andromedans accepted our teaching immediately. So did the entities from Dimension 7. Lisa nodded. "The Assembly fears being left behind." "As they left us behind," Jake added quietly. A communication request arrived from Ambassador John Porter. His image appeared, now fully adapted to multidimensional existence. He could manifest in several realities at once while maintaining a single consciousness. "The Council has voted unanimously," he reported. "They request immediate admission to our alliance. They're willing to accept any conditions." Angela considered this. "What do you think, John? You know them best." "They're scared," John replied, "but also genuinely curious. Some species, like the Proxima Coalition who voted against our exile, are ready to evolve. Others might struggle with the changes. We promise to teach anyone willing to grow," Angela reminded them. "We won't become what they were. No votes, no exclusions." Lisa brought up the integration protocols. "We'll need to start slowly. Basic dimensional theory, simple perception exercises. Most species will need years to adapt." "Then we begin," Angela decided. "Open the first training centers. Accept their application." 3 months later, the first alien students arrived at humanity's dimensional academies. The Vraxian delegate who had once questioned humanity's exile now struggled to understand four-dimensional mathematics. "It makes my scales itch," she confessed to her human instructor, Danny Phillips. Danny smiled patiently. "Your brain is rewiring itself. In a few months, you'll see dimensions your species never imagined." Across human space, similar scenes played out. Former enemies became students. Ancient civilizations learned from the species they had exiled. Some adapted quickly. The Proxima Coalition produced their first dimensional navigator within a year. Others struggled but persisted. Even the Xenathi, humanity's fiercest opponents, sent delegations to learn. Ambassador Korath himself attended the advanced classes. His 4 eyes now perceived 5 dimensions. His tentacles had learned to manipulate dimensional fields. "I was wrong about humanity," he admitted to John Porter during a break. "We saw your potential for growth as dangerous. We never imagined you'd use it to lift others up." John's multidimensional form shifted slightly. "You gave us freedom from your limitations. Now we're returning the favor." The galaxy transformed. Species that had remained static for millennia began to evolve. New alliances formed across dimensional boundaries. The small quarantine zone that once held humanity became a historical curiosity. On the anniversary of the Exile vote, Angela addressed the expanded alliance. "They told us to leave. We chose to transcend. Now we all rise together." The applause echoed across 17 galaxies and countless dimensions. The exile of Earth had ended. The elevation of all sapient life had begun.